question. Hands up those who've tasted abalone before. A few, yeah. And I think you'll probably agree it's fairly bland to eat itself and a bit rubbery, right? So the flavour of the dish comes from the sauce rather than from the meat. The current retail price of fresh abalone is $100 Australian per kilo. And so the point I'm trying to make is that this value is a function of its rarity and not its taste. In fact, I should clarify that abalone is not endangered because it's rare, but it's not endangered because it's managed by fisheries. If it wasn't regulated, it would be extinct because of that value. Now, one of the distinguishing features of traditional Chinese culture has been the unusually high value placed on rare and animal products. The rarer they are, the more valuable they are. This value applies to both formal dining and traditional Chinese medicine, which I'll call TCM. In dining, people want to impress their guests by serving them something rare. This is in China and other Asian countries, especially in business dealings where there's a motive to incur a reciprocal obligation. In TCM, people have this strange belief that just because a product is rare, it's medicinally effective. Now, by definition, endangered species are extremely rare in Western cultures and increasingly in modern China. Endangered species are more highly valued alive than dead. The demand for rare TCM ingredients has become one of the major threats to the survival of endangered species such as rhinoceroses, tigers, saiga antelopes and seahorses. Right. So, this is the topic of my talk, traditional Chinese medicine versus endangered species. And the obvious question is, why am I talking about this? I should explain that during my career at one stage, I was in charge of protecting endangered species in Victoria in the Department of Conservation, Forests and Lands, but not just endangered species. I was in charge of protecting all wildlife and all native plants, including regulating hunting. So it was a wide thing. I had a staff of 120, including 30 PhDs. So the thing is, even though TCM does not threaten species in Victoria, that if you're in this field, you need to keep abreast of developments around the world. So I became quite familiar with what was happening with endangered species and the major threat of TCM around the world. So the thing is, we have a serious class of cultures here where the value of species is based on its rarity, but the difference depends on whether it's live or dead. So here's what I'm going to be talking about. Part 1 will be about traditional Chinese medicine. Part 2 will be endangered species. Surprise, surprise. And I'll talk about traditional Chinese medicine first. What is it? It's a broad range of claimed health treatments sharing common concepts that have been developed in China from traditions more than 2,000 years old. So these treatments are pre-scientific. They're not based on science at all. So it includes various forms of herbal remedies, acupuncture, massage, exercise and dietary practices. It's widely used in China and also in the West in a variety of so-called alternative medicines. So not only is TCM a threat to endangered species, there's also a dearth of evidence for its efficacy. A Nature editorial has described TCM as fraught with pseudoscience, and the most obvious reason why it hasn't delivered many cures is that the majority of treatments have no logical mechanism of action. Worse still, some TCM ingredients have been shown to be dangerously toxic to humans and other mammals. So it's important to distinguish TCM from mainstream medicine as practiced in China. Now, in modern China, the hospitals, they use scientific medicine because they know that it works, and also the doctors know that TCM doesn't work. So in China, the hospitals are run by the government. TCM is administered in private clinics run by practitioners who do not have a Western medical education. In the past, TCM practitioners learned their trade from their parents, mainly from their fathers. But more recently, they've been studying TCM at universities in modern China. So TCM is taught at universities, but it's not practiced in government-run hospitals. So, a little bit more detail. There's this belief that the vital energy, called qi, or qi, flows through meridians. As I say, it's a pre-scientific culture. The underlying philosophy is yin and yang, which you've probably heard about. It's a symbol here, complementary things. And there's also a more detailed 5 elements theory, which is actually quite similar to the ancient Greeks, the Hippocratic theory, although this is a pure coincidence because as far as we know there was no connection 2,500 years ago between China and ancient Greece. The ancient Greek theory is also, what's the word, a lot of nonsense. So I'm not going to go through all this, but there's a long history of, and you can see the timescales. There's no scientific evidence for these things. There's no logical mechanism of action, fraught with pseudoscience. The 2012 Cochrane Review, which is Cochrane Review, those with, if you have a science background, it's the highest level of evidence for scientific evidence because it reviews multiple studies. No evidence of decreased mortality from TCM, herbal remedies, and Western medicine compared to Western medicine alone. So there's no evidence that you're less likely to die using TCM versus Western medicine. So I'm not going to read all this out, but Dr. Stephen Barrett at Quackwatch has also says there's no evidence that, no empirical evidence that these things work. Worse still, there's a potential toxicity of some of these remedies. When we talk about herbal remedies, it's not just plants, and they use animal products as well. They're still called herbal remedies. They found contamination with lead, arsenic, copper, mercury, thallium and cadmium. There's no government monitoring or testing. Even in Australia, there's no government involvement, except in the educational. The universities accredit courses, but that's about it. Botanical misidentification plants can cause toxic reactions. Ephedra can cause cardiomyopathy. TCM is a major cause of acute liver failure in China. That would be mainly because of this contamination. So not only does it not work, it's dangerous. So, endangered species, I'm going to talk about 4 examples: rhinoceros tigers, saiga antelopes and seahorses. Most governments have banned the importation or export of these rhinoceros horns, but there's a black market, as you can imagine. It's like the cigarette industry. There are 5 modern rhino species as recently extinct and 3 is critically endangered. The western black is already extinct. 3 are critically endangered. Northern white, the Java and the Sumatran, all because of this demand for crushed rhino horns. Now, the northern white rhino there are only 2 individuals left in captivity, and they're both female. A lot of help that's going to be. Only 58 individuals of the Javan rhinos remain. The last Javan rhino in Vietnam was reportedly killed in 2011. There were 320 Sumatran rosters left in 1995, and these have dwindled to 211. China, to its credit, has signed an international convention on the international trade. So we can't blame the Chinese government for this, it's a black market. So there's the harvested rhino horns. So China is doing its bit in seizing them at customs. So the western black rhinoceros is extinct. This is the southern white rhinoceros, which is endangered. And even though it looks black, it's been rolling in the mud. It has a lighter skin. The poaching is terrible, mainly in South Africa. The expected decline in rhino populations if poaching increases it. But that's the trend. Now tigers. Bones and the claws are ground up and used in TCM as well. All 6 remaining tiger species are endangered. 3,000 to 4,000 tigers left. The Siberian tiger is most critical. 500 left with clothes. When I saw this photo first, it brought a tear to my eye. Such a beautiful animal. Obviously this is a composite photo. It just shows you how beautiful it is. There's only 500 left. And if they become extinct, I think that'll be a huge loss. There are other Siberian tigers that are endangered. The Saiga antelope. Once again, the horns there are ground up and used in these traditional Chinese medicines. Anyway, you can see where the horns are. It's the same story. Black market, demand driven by Chinese medicine. So the demand for these horns, it's a really strange animal. It's sort of got a trunk to keep the dust out of its mouth. The populations, it's been completely wiped out in China, this antelope, and the yellow bits are where the last populations are left in the yellow bits. And there are parks, the green bits are parks, but as you can see, the parks are not where the antelopes are. So you've got a bit of a problem there. As I say, it's a strange looking animal. So they get smuggled in the black market. Now, you can see this is a product, Chinese cooling water, whatever that is. But the Saiga is listed as one of the ingredients of this water. The ground up antelope horns. And I have to reiterate, completely useless. Seahorses. It's a name given to 54 species of small marine fishes in the genus Hippocampus. The word comes from the ancient Greek meaning horse and campos meaning sea monster. Data is lacking on the sizes of the seahorse populations being born, the number being used for souvenirs. There is insufficient information on the risk of their extinction, but there's still a concern about losing the species because of the volume of the harvesting. Some species, such as the paradoxical seahorse, may already be extinct. Coral reefs and seagrass beds are deteriorating its habitat, reducing viable habitats for seahorses. They're thought to be endangered because of overfishing and habitat destruction. It's widespread in traditional Chinese medicine. Believe it or not, primarily used in connection with impotence, wheezing, nocturnal enuresis, whatever that is, and pain, as well as labour induction for childbirth. It's crazy, this stuff. Up to 20 million seahorses may be caught each year to be sold for the above uses. The import and export of seahorses has been controlled under CITES international treaty. However, 3 countries, Indonesia, Japan and Norway, and South Korea, that's 4 countries, have opted out of this trade agreement. The problem may be exacerbated by the growth of pills and capsules, which is the preferred method of ingesting the seahorses. Now, dried seahorse retails from $600 to $3,000 US per kilogram. So you can see why they're in demand. With the larger, paler and smoother animals commanding the highest prices. In terms of value based on weight, seahorses retail for more than the price of silver and almost the price of gold in Asia. Leafy dragon, the cute little things. Right. I'm just about to finish before questions. So TCM offends our sense of rationality by being a use of waste of time and money. It's also harmful to humans and other species in terms of diversion from effective therapies, risks of toxicity, and threats to the survival of endangered species. So long. And thanks for all the poaching and death. Any questions? Yeah, Jeff?
How does government undertake any education to educate the population about the uselessness of these remedies?
Has the Australian government undertaken...
No, not the Australian government, the Chinese government. Sorry, the Chinese government undertaking any education with their own people on how useless these remedies are?
I don't think they do, actually. I think I would have picked that up in my research if it was the case. See, initially, what happened when Chairman Mao took over, he encouraged the use of TCM because there weren't enough doctors and hospitals in the population. Perhaps previous governments didn't care, but there's evidence that Chairman Mao didn't actually believe in TCM. He was sort of Western educated, and but he promoted it anyway, just for political reasons. And that tradition probably hasn't changed. Probably the present government sort of allows it sort of benignly, but they do take action on import and export. Yep. Barry?
Surely there must be something behind it for it to have been so big over the years. Is it auto-suggestion, or do the patients actually get any relief at all, or do they think they're getting relief? Do you understand that?
Well, obviously I'm not a medical practitioner, but there is the well-known placebo effect, where people, if you think a treatment's going to work, sometimes in a certain percentage it does work. But the main problem is just tradition. It's just you've got this 2,000-year-old tradition of this is part of the culture of China and this is the way we do things. That's mainly what's driving it, rather than efficacy. See, the thing is that what I've found is that if you believe in something without evidence, evidence is unlikely to change that belief because it's not based on evidence anyway. Greg? Oh.
If I were to go and buy half an ounce of seagull's dust or whatever, what reasons would I be minded for? What do I think it's going to do for me?
For you?
Yes. Is it going to sexually active or anything like that?
Well, you'd be buying it in pill form, and the claims are it helps with impotence, wheezing, nocturnal enuresis, and pain, including during childbirth. The poor mums. Probably.
Is there anything that an individual can do in support of changing the situation?
Good question. I think the best thing that individuals can do is just mainly talk about it around the dinner table instead of, oh, I bought some seahorse pills the other day and they don't work. That might be the best thing that you can do.
Sorry, Tim.
Tara.
There is some evidence of some cures working.
Really?
No, I'm talking in the broad sense. For example, the Chinese discovered that a cure for malaria, a particular type of bug, actually worked.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish between the good and the bad?
Right. Okay. For those that didn't hear, Torif's question is: there is some evidence that some TCM remedies might work. For example, in helping with diseases like malaria. Now, often with many of these things, there are often exceptions to the rule. There may be the odd thing that works, but what we do know, and for the purpose of my talk, that TCM ingredients that contain these 4 species that I've talked about today, there's no evidence that any of them work.
Yes, I think you're right on those 4, but Western medicine was developed from several thousand years of this sort of it works for my grandfather type stuff.
Yeah.
And so there must be some elements that Chinese medicine, like Aboriginal medicine and all sorts of things like that, work just from experience and he didn't die, compared as with Western medicine. We've improved it, we've concentrated it, we've tested it, but there must be some element of it compared to as it's developed the same as Western medicine developed.
Yeah, you're quite right. In about 2,500 years ago, the efficacy of Western medicine and Chinese traditional medicine was about the same, not very good, because it was pre-scientific in both cases. And but even though it may not have been understood back then, there's always been this placebo effect, which would have applied to both ancient Western medicine and traditional Chinese medicine. And I forget what it is, but the placebo effect in some cases can be a small percentage, like 5%, 6%, that sort of thing. It can work. Now Neil might have a better answer to this.
When I first started in pharmacy, one of the major forms of treatment of high blood pressure was a thing called Wolfia serpentina, which was a plant that did actually lower blood pressure.
Right.
It also had some pretty awful side effects. And I'd ask anybody in this room, would they prefer to go back to the late 60s, early 70s and take Wolfia, or would they prefer to take the Western medicine equivalents which have been tried, tested and proved, and also incidentally, all of those heavy metals that you put up on there, they are all active ingredients. In fact, all ingredients in modern pharmaceuticals are tested and have very strict limits on those heavy metals.
They do.
The major problem, or the major use for the 4 species that you've talked about, is as an aphrodisiac. It is used by men who are, shall we say, desperate to maintain their virility, and that is a fairly important function for the Chinese man, or the Chinaman in particular. Yeah. And so they are desperate enough to try anything, and these things have been, and incidentally, you forgot to mention the other part of the tiger which is used as an aphrodisiac, which is the penis.
Right.
So tiger penis is supposed to be also an aphrodisiac, and many tigers would kill it just simply for the penis.
So is it dried and ground up or served raw?
Dried and ground up.
Thanks very much for that, Neil.
Tim, I've been watching the tennis,
Yeah.
and there's a Chinese ad that is featured substantially, 1573. Has that got anything to do with that topic that you're dealing with today?
I don't know, because I haven't been watching the tennis, but yeah. Look, I'm not sure about that. Just to add on to Neil's comment, the use of TCM products as an aphrodisiac is not confined to Asia. They're also used in Europe as well. Yeah. Yep. Kevin?
Is it part of a broader problem? Like, I mean, you can go into health food shops and buy all sorts of products from plant-based, etc., for which there's very, very scarce scientific evidence of their effectiveness, and they're allowed to operate in the market, and yet the legitimate pharmaceutical companies that have to get their medicines approved, it costs them millions and millions of dollars to bring something through to approved stage, and yet these other health food shop products aren't subject to any of those compliances.
Yeah, this is a health food shop in Asia, and you can see exactly what Kevin's talking about.
What about Chemist Warehouse?
This is a touchy subject that I don't want to offend any of our pharmacists that are here, but a lot of, not TCM, but and certainly not the 4 endangered species, but there's a lot of alternative medicine sold in pharmacies, as we all know. Yeah.
I was just going to say, a few years ago when I used to go running, one of the creams you could get to relieve muscle pain, one of the pain relief items you could get was called Tiger Balm.
Oh yes.
And that was quite common, you know, in the 1980s.
Yeah. Now,
I don't think it was anything to do with the tiger that made it work.
I think it's a brand name. Just, I don't think there's any tiger products in it. Yeah. Any more questions? Oh, Kevin.
Yeah, I am aware that in Ireland, in the thoroughbred horse industry, there's quite a lot of use of acupuncture.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've actually tried acupuncture too. Now, I have to hold off expressing a medical opinion, but apparently it's contested as to whether acupuncture actually works or not. Neil?
One more comment.
Yeah.
In Australia, there are 2 systems of registration of products.
Yeah.
One is a registration which therapeutic goods must go through, and that's what costs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, to develop all of the necessary data to have the product approved and to show that A, it works, and B, that it's not dangerous. The second, which most of the health foods and natural medicines and wellness goods and so on occur, they are required to have what's called a listing. So, and you'll see on the packet OST-L or OST-R, the listing is simply the product is looked at and on the basis of previous knowledge of the ingredients, the first criteria is that it won't do any damage. And that, if that's the case, then you can get your product listed. There are certain things, in fact quite a large number of things that you cannot claim these products do, the listed products actually do.
Yeah.
But generally you can say it'll relieve your, or grow more hair, for example, irrespective of whether there's any evidence that the product actually does grow hair.
Thanks very much, Neil. Yeah, I understand that there's no TGA assessment or testing of OST-L products for efficacy. It's only if they don't get listed if they cause harm. They're screened. Yeah. Any more questions?
I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Brad.
Way back in my working time, we put some money into some African tigers at the Melbourne Zoo.
Yeah.
Because they were scarce at that time, and I'm not sure, but I don't think they've been successfully united. They might have used his doodle for something else, an aphrodisiac or something. But I don't know that they've bred on, but that was the aim of that time, and the Melbourne Zoo was to help breed on the Sumatran tiger.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't help you there. Okay, now, I've been told by the powers that be that I should aim to finish by 12, so where am I? Just about. One more question. Any more questions? Or are people feeling the time for a drink? Okay, well that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Tim. It's falls to me. Thank you for that talk.
Pleasure.
Lots of great questions. Please take that as our token. When I was asked to do the thanking, it struck me that Yes, thank you. A bit of silence out there, thanks. I thought, what can I do in terms of understanding what this subject is about? And I looked at rhino horn. And apparently rhino horn is the same material that our hair and fingernails comes from.
Keratin, yeah.
And I thought, well, there's a commercial opportunity here. And I Googled it. It's already being done. They are making artificial rhino horn. And there is the view that that's only going to encourage more use of rhino horn. So, at any rate, thank you, Tim. Very interesting. Well done.
Thank you, Leon.